So let's talk about this now. How exactly do you confirm that someone has peptic ulcer disease? I mean, how do you confirm the specific cause of this so that you channel your treatment towards that area without wasting any resources? Imagine how it will feel to discover that what you've been taking drugs for is not actually what you have. Imagine that. And what if those things you are taking are not only unnecessary but also harmful to your body? Well, you've not thought about that. Sometimes we can be lucky in our own ways and get away with some things, but our health is so important that we can't just leave it on luck and assumptions alone. For the records, peptic ulcer has become so common in many areas that almost everybody knows one or two persons that must have had it in the past or that currently has it. But that's not the problem. The major thing is only few persons know that Helicobacter pylori is the commonest cause of this. And worse still, a lot of these persons go ahead relying on self-medications to manage the symptoms with no clinical evidence. And that's where things can get out of hand because some of these symptoms can also be caused by other medical conditions. And even at that, not all ulcers are caused by this bacteria known as H. pylori. There could be other causes. And that's why lab tests for H. pylori is not just an optional one, but an essential one in managing peptic ulcer. And so in today's video, we're going to be looking at the common tests that can be used to identify the original or the real cause of peptic ulcer and some factors that can affect it. So ensure you watch to the end because this will save you a lot. But before we continue, let me tell you something. Do you know that if you subscribe to this channel, you are going to be getting an amazing videos like this without missing anyone? So what do you say? Subscribe. Now, let's get straight into the real issue. What are the common tests that can be used to identify Helicobacter pylori? One of them is stool antigen test. Now, this is a very accurate one. It works based on the principle of antigen-antibody reaction. And then it helps to determine if you have H. pylori by detecting the bacterial antigen in your body. So the clinical laboratory scientist will request for a fresh stool sample from you and then go ahead to carry out some tests to determine if there is a bacterial antigen of interest inside it. So if it is present, it means your ulcer is most likely caused by H. pylori. But if it's not, it therefore means that it could be other causes or from other conditions. Secondly, there is urea breath test. You might not have heard of that, but it's a very sensitive one also used to detect if you have this bacteria in your system. H. pylori is a bacteria that is capable of producing an enzyme known as urease from a urea product and thereby releasing one of the byproducts as carbon dioxide, which you can breathe out. So at the clinic, what the doctor does is he gives you a safe and edible urea product, which you will take in, and thereafter he goes ahead to measure the increase in the amount of carbon dioxide you take out. The third one is blood antibody test. This is another antigen antibody reaction kind of thing, which can help to detect if you have H. pylori. So this one works by detecting these antibodies which your system makes against or in response to the infection of the H. pylori bacteria. And so if it shows up positive, it means you have the bacteria in your system. But here is the limitation of this test. At the initial stage of the infection, your body might not have made enough of these antibodies to be detected by this test method, and so it may test negative. And again, if your body is not able to make a good number of them, even after a very long while, it will also test negative because there's no antibody. And so it works well when your immune system is working very good and maybe at a later stage of the infection. Finally, there is also endoscopic sampling and culture. It's a very sensitive one, even though it's an invasive procedure. A camera tube is inserted into the GIT and used to assess the whole patterns of the GIT to find out and locate the particular place that the ulcer is happening. And when that is done, a sample, usually a biopsy, is collected from those areas and sent to the lab to detect the presence of this H. pylori thing. And then look at where the thing gets more interesting. You are not just detecting the presence of this bacteria, you are isolating them specifically and carrying out susceptibility tests to determine which antibiotic will be most suitable for your treatment. And you see how good this is. What are the clinical uses of this test? It helps to rule out other GIT inflammatory conditions and even cancer. Look, the symptoms you feel might be from something else. There are a lot of gastroenteric conditions that can present with similar conditions as peptic ulcer. And because these symptoms can overlap, it's not really advisable to go and start taking medications without carrying out proper tests to confirm exactly what it is you're going to treat. Secondly, it helps to detect the specific cause of your ulcer. What you are suspecting to be the cause might actually turn out not to be. There's a bacterial cause and non-bacterial cause. And so this H. pylori test helps us to detect if it is actually H. pylori or something else. Again, this test is important because it helps to avoid wrong treatment. Imagine if your ulcer is caused by some other agents like excessive intake of alcohol or abuse of NSAIDs. Taking antibiotics would be a waste of time. You see how it is now. And finally, carrying out these tests helps to monitor treatment. The stopping of your symptoms or the elimination of your symptoms doesn't automatically mean you don't have the condition at all. At that period, the bacteria may be lying low. So these tests help to confirm the success of the treatment. It helps your doctor to review the medications you've been on and see if there's any other thing that could be done, or if there should be a change, or whatever thing that should be done to make sure that this bacteria is eliminated in your system. There are factors that can affect the outcome of the results you get, and one of them is the time of the test. If you test too early, there's a possibility that your body might not have made enough antibodies to be detected. And if you go through blood antibody test, you're going to test negative. And again, if you test immediately after your treatment, you may still detect some inactive bacteria which are still in your system. And then all these things may combine together to give you either false positive or false negative results. There's also medication interference. If you must carry out this test, you should avoid some medications like antibiotics and proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole. It's important you stop it. Why? Because they can make the bacteria to lie low and evade detection when you carry out the test. Now, there's also the issue of the test method used. Take for instance, the blood antibody test may not be able to tell you in most cases if the infection is current or it has happened in the past. Because if you had H. pylori in the past, the antibodies might still be in your body and can be detected each time you go for test. For stool antigen test, if you submit a watery stool, the concentration in that stool may be very diluted, in the sense that they may not be detected when you carry out the test and you may get a wrong result. Finally, there's human factor. If you give wrong information to your clinician or to the laboratory scientist, it may affect your results. Take for instance, if they give you instructions to follow and you don't follow it, or you don't bring the correct sample, or you bring a contaminated sample, you are going to have a wrong result, and that will affect the overall outcome of whatever thing you are going to get. Listen, H. pylori test is very essential in diagnosis and management of peptic ulcer. Yes, but because there are some factors that can affect the result you get, we are saying that you should stick to instructions. Things to avoid, you avoid them, and things to do, you make sure you do them. Make sure you carry out this test in a trusted laboratory run by medical experts so that you get what you are looking for. If you do this thing very well, I can assure you the result will amaze you. In case you have other places you want clarifications or you need specific information, ensure to drop it at the comment section. Let's go through it together. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next.